Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Casa De Confidence and the Confident You radio show. Today, I have with me someone who wrote a book called Rooted Renegade, Transform Within, Disrupt the Status Quo, and Unleash Your Legacy. Talking about legacy is one of the things that I feel is the most important thing that we can do. Because if we begin to picture ourselves in the future and what we want that legacy to be, then we can inform our actions today. And I will tell you that our guest is not only an author, but she's a holistic leader coaching firm from an ambitious professionals is who she's working with. And she has worked with over 100 leaders in the fields of education, medicine, law, academia, and social impact. So again, creating legacy and creating a ripple effect is what we love here. So Rebecca Arnold, welcome to the show.
I'm delighted to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Well, I have to say, it would be hard not to have someone that has such incredible resume, first of all.
My husband calls coaching the highlight reel because it brings together a lot of different experiences I've had, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was not a lawyer or worked in the medical field. I worked in the K-12 education
hmm
industry for many years. And one of the things that I know is that I did a lot of different things, but my
hmm
coaching also kind of puts it all under one bucket.
Yeah, it's amazing how that happens, isn't it? I mean, we
Yeah.
just draw from all of our life experiences and to bring to our clients based on whatever they need.
Yeah. What is the one experience from everything else, from everything that you've done in the past
hmm
that has given you, you would say, the strongest tools to what you're doing now?
So I think my experience with burnout has actually been the thing that has had the greatest impact on my coaching because it's the thing that led me to coaching in the first place. I had been working in education policy and thought I'd found my dream job, and I was just delighted and I burnt myself completely out. And based on that experience, it sort of what that trajectory looked like for me, the tools I was missing, the mindsets I was operating on top of informed some of the things I bring to my coaching because many of my clients are on the brink of burnout
Mhm.
or are coming back from burnout and are really looking for ways to do things differently, to do work
Mhm.
differently, to do their relationships differently, to do their leadership differently. So that's more sustainable. And they recognize the way it had been going is no longer going to be the way it can continue.
Yeah, you're working with high achievers.
hmm
You're working with individuals who are at the top of their field,
Yep.
and for many individuals in that arena, and again, I've been a high achiever from time to time, I suppose.
hmm
And I know that at times it's so easy to just go all in without regards to your well-being, without regards
Yep.
to those boundaries, because we want to continue to achieve. We want to continue to go all in.
hmm
We make it mean something about us if we don't. Would
Yeah.
you agree with that?
Yeah, I think there's so many pieces to this, right? There's
Mhm.
our social conditioning around what counts as success, and it's usually a title and a salary and
Mhm.
a particular kind of impact.
Yeah.
For people who are high achievers and want to have huge social impact, there's the mission that
Mhm.
feels like it's kind of a breathing down their neck in a way that is aligned in terms of their values, but simultaneously this pressure to achieve impact immediately, and it becomes very hard for people to start setting boundaries that are going to be create the spaciousness they need to have a full life. I also see for a number of my clients who've spent a long time in a career training trajectory,
Mhm.
what worked to get them to the level they're at now is not sustainable for the next 10 years. They've
No,
been sprinting and you can't sprint for a decade. And so
agreed.
then some of the cracks start to show around perfectionism and people pleasing and challenges with boundaries and negative self talk and all of those things that accumulate below the surface
Mhm.
and are individual contributors to burnout. I mean, they're clearly systemic contributors to burnout too.
Yeah. I'm curious for you and again, most of us coaches coach the person we were a few steps back.
Yep.
Um, What are the things that you do to create expansiveness, a spaciousness for you?
For me personally, oh,
For
I
you
love this
personally.
question. I think about the ocean. I'm not a religious person, but I'm a
Mhm.
spiritual person. And I think about the ocean as my church. And I
Mm,
go to the ocean and I speak to my higher self. I go to the ocean and I ask questions and just sort of meditate as I walk.
mhm.
Um, and that is a place that I return to again and again when I'm really wrestling with something. My dog creates a lot of spaciousness. I have teenagers, so that is a whole
Yeah, that's a
different
whole nother
rodeo.
game. Yeah, for sure, for sure.
And so the spaciousness I create kind of in those quiet moments, I get them that feel like sacred right now because I don't have them very much longer
Aw.
at home. And so there are these moments I carve out for myself during the week. I meditate, I practice Reiki on myself, which I find to
Ooh.
be a really expansive practice. And I can be very logical and literal. I mean, I've trained as a lawyer. That's
Mhm,
kind of what we do. And I've recognized as I've gotten older and kind of settled more into myself how important that kind of space of intuition and groundedness and expansiveness is to my well-being.
mhm. I love that you go to the ocean. We're going to have to hang out and go to the ocean
Oh,
together.
yes, I
It
would
is
love that.
one of my
I'm a
favorite
sand
things.
dollar seeker. I don't know about you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really funny. We were having the conversation with my husband the other day, and to him, going to the ocean, it's a little boring, but for me, it's like, okay, it's my time to just
Hmm.
sit and but he's very chatty, and I'm trying to be in myself here. He's like chatty. I'm like, can you take a nap or something?
Well, you and I can go to the ocean
Okay,
silently,
okay,
maybe with a
perfect.
cocktail.
Oh, please. It's a must. It's one of these things that are very crucial. One of the things for me is I was going through my corporate career and I was climbing that corporate ladder, right? You become your first big promotion, you're a manager, then you become a director and then executive director and so on and so on.
Hmm.
Um, I knew I wanted to grow. I knew I had ambition, but I was very unclear about my wants and desires somewhere along the way.
Hmm.
And as I started to kind of get that little burning desire to really have a legacy, I still was unclear about my wants and desires.
Hmm.
Is that common? Or is that something that was it just me going through something like that? Or am I
No, it's
weird?
very common. I think what's challenging is that we don't normalize the questioning of that and the pursuit of that.
Mm,
So many of us are on education roads or predetermined career paths
mhm,
that have been modeled for us or told that that is what success looks like. And we
mhm,
are very
mhm,
unskilled in
mhm.
the range of questions we need to kind of interrogate about ourselves, to even pay attention to what do I enjoy, what
Yeah.
lights me up and doesn't drain me. It's a really different orientation than like take the class, get the certificate, get the degree, all of
Right.
that, which has nothing to do with what are the things that really light us up and have us racing to our desks in the morning.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I kind of
Oh
wish this was
God.
on the curriculum for all K-12 schools, all universities, all of it's really a
Okay.
life curriculum.
I have to say, having been in the rooms where you're doing a lot of the curriculum design at the district level, at the
Hmm.
state level,
Hmm.
yeah, we need that. I mean, don't even get me started with all the other things that we really should be teaching in the K-12 that
Hmm.
are very crucial. But these are things that I don't foresee necessarily being implemented. We really, and in some cases, a lot of programming when it comes to, for instance, social emotional learning, it's
Hmm.
getting cut out
Yeah.
because people don't really truly understand, right? People want to
Hmm.
have black and white, and this is woo, this is not helpful, but it really is at the essence of a lot of other things. When I am
Hmm.
connected and when I have that awareness of myself, when I'm thinking how I interact with others, um, how I can be of service to others, then it completely shifts my day to day actions
Hmm.
and how I show up for even learning something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think about the mental health crisis, the
Mhm.
loneliness crisis,
Yeah.
the chronic disconnection people are experiencing at
Yeah.
work and disengagement. All of these things, in my view, have roots in our inability to
Mhm.
connect with who we are, what we want, how do we calm our nervous systems, how do we prioritize what matters most to us.
Mhm.
And if we're not teaching those things in schools and we don't know it as parents necessarily to share with our kids, there's a huge gap
Mhm.
in our kind of trajectory, our life
Yeah.
trajectory.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what I think it's also an epidemic, and I knew that this was the beginning of me knowing that it was time for me to go.
Mm,
When because I loved what I did, I was very passionate about the work that I did, but when I started to get up in the morning and not be excited
hmm
about my work.
hmm
And now I realize, obviously everybody talks about the Sunday scaries, the Monday blues.
hmm
But I know very few people who get up in the morning with the excitement for what's ahead of them, for
hmm
what they're doing. Obviously, we all need to work to make an income, right? But they're not excited about the stuff that they do day in and day out. They're not, they are looking, we have a society that looks to the next vacation
hmm
as a way, oh, this is going to make it better. Once I go on vacation, and then you come back and you come back to the same old, and then you get into that pattern.
hmm
Um, what what can we communicate, or how can we communicate to people that it's okay to question, or it's okay to say, maybe this is not for me anymore. Maybe I can follow a passion.
hmm
I can do that. What can we do?
I love that you're asking this question because this orientation toward what many of us are doing in the presence of those feelings are just numbing ourselves, right?
Mm,
We're scrolling, we're drinking, we're staying up late, we're shopping, we're planning our vacations, we're doing other
mhm.
things to distract
Oh
ourselves
my
from
God,
the
not
day to
for
day.
nothing. That was my night last night. And
We
then
all need
I
nights
I,
like
I
that.
want to say, right? We see, even when we're in this better path, we all
Mhm.
have these back things. Because
Yeah.
yesterday, I noticed I was scrolling. I had a glass of wine.
hmm
Then I stopped scrolling. I went to plan our vacation because
hmm
all of this is happening. And when I looked at the clock, I'm like, "Ooh, I need to go to bed. This is not helpful to me." But
Yeah.
that awareness took me a long while to get there.
Yes. But notice how that was one night, right? So
Yeah,
people go decades like that,
decades.
which
Yeah.
breaks my heart. I
Me
mean,
too.
you think about the emotional toll of that and the energy it takes to force
Mhm.
yourself to work and force yourself through the day to day instead of actually liberating yourself to do the thing that is easy for you and delightful for you and brings so much greater
Mhm.
impact to the world. So I think part of the answer to your question is normalizing that you're entitled to do things that are easy for you and delight you and have the impact you want to create.
Right.
That is not cheating. That is not wrong. It's in fact how I think we were designed. And I have this kind of undergirding belief that if everyone were doing that, we would have so many more solutions to our world problems. And
Agreed.
our families would feel different, our relationships would feel different, our whole life trajectory would look different.
Yeah.
So I think it starts by talking about it and normalizing that.
100%. My late mother-in-law, who is not my husband's mom, but my first husband's mom, she used to say, "You take yourself wherever you go."
hmm
And a lot of times we think it's going to be the new job. We think that it's going to be the new house, or when I get that level, right?
hmm
I'm going to be happy. But if
hmm
we don't find happiness here in the now and learn to cultivate that curiosity again, that self awareness, self compassion, it's going to
hmm
be very difficult to continue to get to a new piece of happiness. It's not going to
hmm
happen. We're still going to be lonely. We're still going to be just kind of surviving rather than thriving.
hmm Yeah, I mean, if you think about many folks come to my practice feeling like that, like I just did everything right. I've just hit the
Yeah.
kind of upper echelons of my career. Why am I still miserable?
Mhm.
And you
Yeah.
think about, the title on the door or the money in the bank or all of those things.
Mhm.
Well, if you are simultaneously beating yourself up day in and day out and talking to yourself like garbage, how is
Yeah.
any title or any amount of money ever going to erase that? It's not. So
Never.
getting a new title is not going to change the fact that you're beating yourself up all day. And so what I think causes a lot of dissonance for folks, which actually leads them into coaching or therapy, is
Mhm.
when there's that massive disconnect. It's like on the outside, everything should be fine.
Mhm.
But on the inside, I still feel like garbage. And I keep moving the target,
Yes.
right? I keep going for the next thing, or I move my house,
Mhm.
or change my relationship. And for some reason, it's still here. And people start
Yeah.
to scratch their head and go, hold on, there's a common
Yeah.
denominator here. And I think it might be me. And it's
Absolutely.
so
That's the
important.
hard part when we
Hmm.
figure out that we're the common denominator because it makes us uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. I I was recently asked, and this is not typically a question I ask on the podcast, but obviously it's fresh in my mind. I was interviewed for an article and I was asked the proverbial question, what would I give, advice? Oh, or I guess I should read it because it came in a text. What advice would I give my younger self in my 20s or 30s? And for
Mm,
me, I there were so many things that I could have said, right? But I really came in and I decided I don't think it's the advice that I would give my younger self, it's the advice I would give my nieces.
mm,
And I wonder for you, do you have a piece of advice that you feel you would give a young woman that is you 20 years ago, or
hmm.
that you would give your younger self?
I mean, I would start with the most important relationship you will ever have is the relationship with yourself.
Mhm.
And if you're not working on that now, it will come back and bite you in the butt.
A
So,
100%.
so the time is now. It's not when you're 50 and have made choices
Mhm.
based on a relationship that's
Yeah.
really out of whack. But it needs to start with like, how are you treating yourself with self-compassion? How
Mhm.
are you understanding what makes you tick?
Yeah.
How are you asking yourself the questions about what really matters and reflecting on that?
Yeah.
Those are the things that I think it's not outside, it's an inside job. Um,
Yeah.
and that's a piece of how I would start to answer that question. I think I would have a long letter to write.
Mm.
What
I
did you
would have,
say?
yeah. So, one of the self compassion was one of the things that I
Hmm.
said that definitely would be. And here's the thing, right? I think that we spend so much wasted time hating what we see in the mirror,
Hmm.
looking to measure up and not realizing the inner gifts that we have.
Hmm.
And yet we're trying to pretend in front of other people like, oh, look how great I am, right? Especially if we're
Hmm.
high achiever. But yet
Hmm.
we turn around and don't think much of us because we don't have that self-compassion.
Hmm.
So I think that that's one of the biggest things that I really, and I started to see that in my 10-year-old niece, that she started to change. She started to really, as she gets more into her little group of friends, right?
Hmm.
Um, she starts to shrink,
Hmm.
and that self-compassion, she's always very hard on herself. And by the way, she's brilliant, but really a high achiever herself. She plays the cello, piano, violin. She's in musical theater. She dances. I don't know what else, right? And I see that there's so much that we end up doing, and there's nothing wrong with following all these passions, but
Hmm.
if we're not going to be proud and be our first cheerleader,
Hmm.
it's going to create a lot of stress and lead to that burnout.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like the question around pursuing passion is like, is it
Mhm.
coming from a place of lack or is
Mhm.
it coming from a place of delight and joy?
Yeah. Yeah.
What are some of the reasons underlying pursuing those
Mhm.
things?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. The other thing too that I talked about is, and this is, by the way, the biggest lesson. I really ran away from failure. Like
Hmm.
it just, I didn't want to fail. If I was failing, I didn't want anybody to know. I needed to kind of do the smoke and mirrors. I'm
Hmm.
fine. Everything is good. And then all of a sudden, I remember having the conversation with my dad, who was one of my biggest mentors. And I had like a huge failure. And he said, honey, you know Babe Ruth, right? And because we both big Yankee fans. And I said, of course. It's like, what made him the biggest success and have such a high batting average? I'm like, I don't know. He worked hard. He practiced. He believed in himself. He's like, no, he failed a lot. He had a lot of
Hmm.
strikeouts. And I thought, huh. And from that day on, I keep a little picture of Babe Ruth to
Hmm.
remind me that the failure is what's going to get me to the next level. It's what's going to
Yeah.
teach me, and it's going to be the thing that strengthens me. What are some of your biggest failures?
Oh, my burnout experience felt like a
Yeah, yeah.
huge failure. I mean, I was not in alignment with my values. I didn't end that position the way that I wanted to. I feel like I ran away from it mostly because I
Mhm.
couldn't face the shame of the whole experience of it.
Mm,
That was terrible.
yeah,
Um, hmm, I feel like that's the biggie.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, that always is,
yeah.
the burnout, because we're not only get to a place in which we physically, emotionally can't give anymore,
Hmm.
but it affects not only us, but then it begins to affect the people around us too.
Yeah. 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 I mean, it had an impact on my family, on my husband, on the whole kind of our whole system.
Hmm.
I think what's really hard about failure is when we carry so much shame about it, right? So the point of failure is to learn from it.
Hmm.
But in school, we don't lift up and celebrate failure. We
Yeah.
say you have
No.
to fail to learn, but then we don't
Yeah.
have like a failure party when we get an F on a
No.
test.
Oh my gosh. If anything, you're
Right,
you're renegated to like the other part, like, oh,
right.
that failure. Let me go ahead and we don't celebrate that.
Hmm.
I actually, there was a school in Arizona that we were studying when I worked for the company that I worked for, the educational company, because we were going to help a school in Texas replicate the flipped classroom model.
Hmm.
And one of the things that I loved about it is that in flipping the classroom, in which rather than going home and doing homework, at home, the kids were actually doing the work with the teacher. So
Hmm.
the teacher, if they were having an issue doing their math and they really weren't getting it, they were actually alongside with someone understanding, okay, you didn't get it. Let's try it again. Right. And
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
that's what happens a lot, that sometimes we live in this society where we have to do the failure alone and nobody comes
Hmm.
alongside of us.
Hmm.
And then we think something is wrong with me because I'm last, because I'm not there. And that's, I think, the other shift that we need to make in this world.
Hmm. That's one of my favorite things in coaching is
Mm.
that, and I don't know if this is your experience too, but when clients leave and they're working on something in between sessions and it doesn't go how they thought it might, we get
Mhm.
to talk about it. What did you find out?
Yeah.
What did you learn about yourself? How might
Mhm.
you do that differently? What did you discover? I mean, there's so much richness there and
Mhm.
there's no shame, right? No
Not at
judgment
all.
attached to it. It's just an opportunity for exploration and learning. And there just
Yeah.
aren't a lot of places we have to really tussle with that in a way that
Mhm.
serves us.
Yeah, we need to have these places where we celebrate the person that's coming in last. We need
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
not sure if you're on TikTok, but I talked about this back in November. Um, I used to live, when I lived in New York City, I lived on the Upper West Side. So in on marathon weekend, of course, we would see all the runners and we would sometimes be in the park and cheering people on. And
Hmm.
then when I moved to Brooklyn, I lived right by the Verrazano Bridge. So it was the first place where people were coming from the marathon. It was a very interesting perspective to see the
Mm.
people starting out and then the people also ending, right? The
Hmm.
differences. And this year, when I was kind of scrolling, I saw a video of the runners that were the last runners to come in for the marathon. And there was a group of individuals who were there cheering them on, and just it and I thought, this is exactly what we need to do for
Hmm.
people.
Hmm.
We need to go alongside of them and cheer them on. And by the way, cheer ourselves on, because we have to be our best
Hmm.
cheerleader
Hmm.
and say, good job, you're doing it. You can do this. Look at you, you're finishing, as opposed to, oh, I came in last, or
Hmm.
no, you finished. You ran this freaking thing.
Hmm.
Celebrate that. It's incredibly important to do that.
Yeah, I'm right with you.
Yeah.
I wish we all had that within and also allies alongside to support
Yeah.
us with that.
Your book is coming out soon, Rebecca.
Yes,
I'm excited for this
me too.
because I am a reader, and certainly from the first initial conversation that you and I had, I was excited to get my hands on the book. Um, what are some of the things that we can expect to gain from what you share with us in the book? And that is, again, writing a book is not an easy. It's not an easy feat,
Mhm.
and I know that it takes a lot of introspection to be able to share with others, right? What we've been going through. But I'd love for
Yep.
you to kind of share a little bit about your process for the book and what can we expect to see
Sure.
from the Rooted Renegade, which is your book.
Yeah. So I feel like this book is a love letter to the world and my love letter to coaching, really,
Mm,
because it draws on so many client stories, my own experiences, tools and practices I use with my clients. And so
mhm.
I actually started working on this book during the very early stages of the pandemic when I felt like there were
Wow.
all this resources I had that I felt like
Mhm,
we so desperately needed in the world as we were going through such a hard time. And now what I feel like I've basically put together is a path to holistic success that supports
mhm,
people towards sustainable living and leading. So it sounds
mhm.
very lofty, but I am a super practical person, as I have said. So there are over 50 exercises that walk you through everything from creating a relationship of more gratitude with your body
Mm,
to changing your emotional state to be more aligned with what you're needing in a given moment, to exploring what your legacy is and the impact that you want to make,
mhm.
to delving into the relationship you want to create with yourself so
Yeah.
that you build yourself up instead of break yourself down. So it really
Mm,
walks you through this notion that I have of holistic success that is deeply steeped in a whole sense of peace that is your
mm,
internal experience of peace in your body and how to generate that, a sense of existential peace that you're aligned with your purpose, your values, what you're doing with your life, and then relational peace with yourself and other people. And I
mm.
think I'm really clear in the book like, this is not a destination.
Oh,
These are,
nice.
if
Thank
it works,
you.
I'll be piecing out right now.
Yeah,
But they're places to look when things feel off in our lives. It's somewhere to
agreed.
go, a place, an orientation toward
Mhm.
what to kind of excavate and look at and work on.
Mhm. Amazing. I think for so many of us, and again, I think that this was another shift in paradigm for me. I needed to see that there is always more of a journey and not that arrival. When we
Hmm.
focus on once I get there, right,
Hmm.
and we think the world will be fixed or we will be fixed,
Hmm.
we create a lot of angst for ourselves. You were going to walk us through an exercise from the book.
Yes.
I
Yes.
really am anxious for this. And by the
Oh,
way, I saw that you have a self-discovery virtual retreat on your site, and
I do.
I may need to get that because I'm going to the beach.
Oh, perfect.
So
Yes.
that might be the perfect thing, and my husband will have to do his own thing.
We'll have him do it too.
Even better. You're right. You're right. That's a good idea.
So
See,
this exercise is in a section on ways to cultivate peaceful emotions, right? There's research that we experience 8 to 12 on any given day, 8 to 12 stressful moments from our Zoom not working to the car not behaving how we want to a stressful meeting, right? It runs the gamut. We don't have a lot of tools and experiences with generating on purpose the emotional experience we want to have. So I'm
Mhm.
going to walk you through an abbreviated
Great.
version of this exercise that's in the book.
Perfect.
So, what I want to invite you to do, Julie, is just pick an emotion you would like to have more in your life. So, I'll give you a couple of examples. It could be anything:
Okay.
tranquility, contentment, awe, humor, anything.
Okay. Do you want me to tell you?
Yeah, that'd be great.
I would definitely say, and it's not cheesy, but it really is always gratitude. I want to be really rooted in gratitude, continue to
Great,
be. Yeah.
great. So, can you think about a moment you felt super grateful for something, or even call to mind now something that you're deeply grateful for, and just tell us what that is?
Mm. Well, I am incredibly grateful for my mom and for her health.
Hmm.
She had a big scared, and we were scared,
Mm,
and she is here. She's healthy. And yeah, I'm incredibly grateful for her.
Great. Me too. I'm glad that worked out for her and your
Mm,
family.
thank you.
As you share that, my dog is having a moment with you too of
Oh,
gratitude.
well, good. I'm glad.
He's having a good dream. Um, as you focus on that moment of gratitude for her health, what are you aware of in your body, in how you're sitting, the tone of your voice?
Mm, there's calm.
Mm-hmm.
And I would even venture to say that contentment, like, "Oh, okay. Ooh,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
I love that. Like I'm seeing you
Mhm,
exhale and even your body's sort of sinking down a little bit. And
mhm,
I hear your voice getting softer and more gentle. Okay, so now I'm going to have you do this is gratitude, right? We're sort of locking in the sensations of gratitude, the
mhm,
posture, the voice, the internal sensations. Now I want you to invite you to do something that's totally the opposite, like you're pissed about something.
mm.
Can you get pissed for a sec?
Sure,
Oh,
easily.
yeah. Tell me something you're pissed about, Julie.
Oh, I am, I would say fairly annoyed at the annoyance of red tape. Um,
Mm. Hmm.
yeah,
Yep.
there's people that I do some work with and volunteering, but sometimes the red tape just gets in the way of getting things done.
Hmm.
That's super
Great.
annoying. Yeah.
Great. What are some of the physical sensations of irritation,
Mm.
frustration for you?
Yeah, I already feel my jaw tightening.
Uh-huh. Yep. And I saw your
Yeah.
face kind of
Yeah.
clench a little bit.
Yeah,
Great.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So those are your physical tells associated with aggravation, irritation. So now we're going to go back to the gratitude state for a second. So can you have your body just
Okay.
sink in and tell the audience what you're doing with your body as you do that?
Okay. So number one, I'm sitting up a little straight. So
Uh-huh.
as I breathe, I really have a clear passageway for my breath.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm just really deep diving into that sensation and really visualizing what was
Mm-hmm.
that instance when my mom was better, when I knew that she was going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, yeah, just breathing deeply.
Great. And I see your face has
Mhm,
transformed.
mhm,
It's like softened and your voice has softened again. So that's the whole practice, right? Notice how
yeah.
simply you could shift
Mhm,
from the irritation, aggravation about the red tape to grounded in gratitude just by
mhm,
changing what you were paying attention to in your brain, in your mind, like attending to her health, and also
mhm.
physically creating those sensations on purpose.
Yeah, such a beautiful practice. I love this.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
if you think
thank
about,
you.
8 to 12 times a day, or even just once a day, purposely
What a big
creating
difference, right? Yeah.
purposely creating the emotional experience you want to have, we have so
Mhm.
much choice and power around that instead of
Yeah.
being subject to our circumstances.
Yeah, and Rebecca, I would even venture to say, right? Because this exercise for me, and I mentioned earlier, right? Oh, I was scrolling, I was having a glass of wine, I stayed up
Hmm.
late, and yeah, I was dealing with a lot of those emotions. And for many
Hmm.
of us, we don't really pay attention to these things, like we said,
Hmm.
and then we fall into the buffering behavior.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then we continue to not just buffer one night, but it falls into that pattern. It becomes a
Yeah.
habitual buffer. Um, and yeah, having this exercise, it reminded me like I did not pause yesterday to say, like, okay, what was going on? How can I process this other than,
Hmm.
right? I was just so
Hmm.
glad that the conversation was over. Okay, tomorrow I'll deal with it.
Hmm.
And I needed to just escape and
Yeah.
buffer the feelings
Yeah.
because they were not happy feelings. And
Yeah.
yeah, and I think that this happens to us, and I want to encourage the listeners to, in those moments that, again, we're not going to be perfect, but in the moments in which you are falling into things that you want to move away from, maybe staying
Hmm.
up late, or maybe being a snappy doodah to your family, right?
Hmm.
Pause, take the pause and wonder, like, oh, I know that I snapped, but why? What
Hmm.
happened? And really
Hmm.
dissect that, because when you pinpoint where that's coming from, and again, you don't have to necessarily change it, but you can then shift, right?
Hmm.
And like Rebecca was walking me through this, I could feel gratitude and I could feel the annoyance.
Hmm.
and I can move from one to the next
Hmm.
without necessarily not being annoyed at one level, right? But
Yep.
emotions can't live, even if there are different emotions, they can
Hmm.
live within you. And that's
Hmm.
important to be able to know. We're not a switch, but it's kind of like a dimmer.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we forget how we actually have a lot of tools available to us
Mhm.
once we learn them
Yeah.
to shift more on purpose. One of the practices I love that it reminded me of as you were talking about your evening is I call it lovingly telling on yourself. So if I
Ooh.
love pretzels, but sometimes I go a little nuts with the pretzels. And so I'll say, Rebecca, you're not actually hungry right now.
Yeah.
You're bored. And
Yeah.
that's fine. There's no judgment, right? I can continue to
Mhm.
munch on my pretzels,
Right.
or I can take a different action, but
Mhm.
I'm naming what's actually happening behind the behavior I'm doing. And that gives me so
Absolutely.
much more control and choice.
Mhm. Absolutely. I ordered, I really hate the grocery store unless it's Trader Joe's, but I don't always get there. Um, so I typically order groceries and have them deliver because that to me
Hmm.
is just so much easier. And as I was placing my delivery, I typically go in and I just, it's pretty, we're boring. Okay, repeat the order. And then all of a sudden I found myself, you know what? Maybe I get some chips and salsa. And as I'm
Hmm.
putting everything in the cart, I thought, "Hmm, wow, what are you doing? Like what's going on?"
Hmm.
And there's nothing wrong, if you want to have an extra snack or you want to have a treat, but at the same time, it's really important to pay attention to that behavior.
Hmm.
Because if I didn't address it, if I didn't really pay attention to things, then what ends up happening is I keep piling on, piling on, piling on. Then we go into that, okay, oh, I ate all of that. Or oh, how come and we beat ourselves up.
Hmm.
And that
Hmm.
leads to that burnout. That leads
Hmm.
to that overwhelm. So this is so good. This is so good. Where can people, they can still pre-order the book. Well,
Yes.
this is not going to come out in a week. So uh,
It's out June 10th
it's
to
out
the
June
world.
10th to the world. What a
Yep.
fun day.
Yes. And
Um,
you can find out more at therootedrenegade.com. And I think Julie will have in the show notes a link if you're interested
yeah.
in signing up to get for a chance to get a signed copy. We'll be doing a book giveaway, which is
Oh,
always
so
fun.
excited for that. Yes, I am a
Um,
big fan of signed copies. I think that
yes.
it's always fun to to connect with the author. And I know that
Hmm.
it takes a lot to be able to write a book. Did you find that there were moments in which it was really, what was the word that I would say, like, intimate for me to share a lot of parts of myself when I wrote my
Mm.
book? Did you find
Hmm.
that? Or was there something similar that you
Yeah.
experienced as you were
I think
writing?
there's a part in the book where I talk about forgiveness.
Mhm,
And I did a lot of work on forgiveness related to the relationship with my father and
mhm,
had a lot more to do. And so I talked through an exercise that I used as he had ALS and was dying. And
mm,
and we hadn't been in relationship. And I really wanted to say goodbye to him in a way that felt heartfelt and
mhm,
true to me and felt like a gift I could give him. So I walked through this forgiveness process.
mhm.
That has been one of the most transformational things I've ever done. And I'm so grateful I did it because I was able to send him off in a way that felt aligned for me. But
Oh,
that was tough to write. I had to write
yeah.
that section. I had to work on that multiple times because I was
Mhm,
working through stuff as I was writing.
yeah.
But it's interesting to hear people's reactions. And many of us have someone in our life who we are doing a
Mhm.
lot of deep forgiveness work around. And
Yes.
I think there's a lot of vulnerability and emotion imbued in that
Mhm.
section that people
Yeah.
really get that I think has it land
Mm.
very deeply for folks.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that when it comes to forgiveness, and a lot of people think, oh, I could never, or so many things, right, that come up when
Hmm.
we talk about forgiveness. But I have learned, and I know that it's not the first time that someone will hear this. It's for you. Do the work. It's for
Hmm.
you. It will
Hmm.
lessen your load. It will create expansion. And so
Hmm.
beautiful that you share that. And it is a gift that you're sharing that, your process, and also perhaps people will look at it and say, "Oh, I need this. I can do it." So I'm excited for the lives that are going to be touched through what you
Yeah.
shared and through the work that you did for yourself. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
being here. You're amazing. I love
Oh,
the exercise. I've enjoyed our time together. I know that you're not too far away from me. We're going to have to grab coffee in person.
yes, for sure. We'll hit Ryan's and
Yeah.
get some corned beef.
Oh, there you go. Absolutely. You know what? I think I'm going to have a meetup at Ryan's. Actually, put it in your calendar. I'm hosting an event October 5th here
Oh,
in Connecticut. It's called Building a Boss Summit.
ooh, I love that.
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank
It's
you.
going to be very exciting. We've been working on it behind the scenes, and today we actually nailed down our place, and it's in a very fun spot here in Connecticut that people are going to love, and you're going to be able to connect with other incredible individuals. So put it in your calendars, October 5th, and you'll get a personal invitation when we get ready to
Fantastic.
send those. Thank you so much,
Yay.
Rebecca.
Thanks, Julie. Thanks for having me.
Make sure that you go and connect with Rebecca. Everybody, we're going to have all the information in the show notes. Her book is coming out June 10th. So by the time that we have this out, you are going to be able to go and get a copy of the book. And the book, again, I can't wait for you to get a copy of it, my friends. I have it here, Rooted in Renegade. I wanted to read the subtitle, which I got sidetracked. Transform within, disrupt the status quo, and unleash your legacy. Rooted Renegade. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. Go confidently in the direction of your dreams. Hi, everybody. I know that sometimes we get very lonely in this entrepreneur journey, and I want to invite you to join us into our limited time only Purposeful You Mastermind. For many of us entrepreneurs, we believe that we can do it all, but the reality is that doing it alone only creates a lot of overwhelm. So join us at the Purposeful You Mastermind. You can find out more information by going to bit.ly/Julie's Mastermind. This is going to be the place where you are able to then unlock your full potential and achieve long-term success for your business. Push you behind your current limits, expand your connections, discover new ideas, and implement them with confidence. You're going to get the support in all aspects and transforming you to the six-figure business you've been looking for. Pause and get off the hamster wheel if you've been spinning around. This is a time where you can get that support from like-minded entrepreneurs that are here to join you in your journey. Together, we can challenge the assumptions and land the speaking engagements and opportunities we want to grow our business and make an impact in the lives of people. See you then. Remember, you can find the mastermind at bit.ly, Julie's Mastermind.